In Pursuit of Truth, this is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, Q is back, you're back, I'm back, we're all back. So fist bump your neighbor and grab your coffee or do whatever you gotta do. If you gotta hit the head, maybe pause the video because we're not waiting for that. Let's wash your hands, maybe. Anyway, we're talking about Vindman, we're talking about Bolton, we're talking about the New Hampshire rally, we're talking about justice.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, she did.
No, not.
Yes, she
not,
did. Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Folks, 38:49, 33 minutes after the hour of 4, we get just this. Justice. Just the word justice. Well, Q has mentioned justice quite often, and I think that they are talking about a marker, could be talking about a Supreme Court justice, could be just talking about justice in general, right? Now, I posted this on really all my platforms yesterday. This was a thread reader app that I did yesterday in regards to this post. I think there's a lot of examples. We've seen the word, if you just search justice in the Qmap search, you'll find a ton of things that you could probably pull up that might be relevant, but I just want to highlight a couple. This first one here was post 3724. This was from the 19th of December, 2019. And this was one of the few times where I saw justice in the brackets here, which sometimes Q has called the kill box, meaning sometimes whatever's in there might be getting removed. So could this be hinting to a removal of a justice? Now keep in mind, this was December 2019, not that long ago. Could we be talking about Darth Bader Ginsburg? Could we be talking about Justice Roberts? Don't really know. But what I found curious about this is that it references the Mueller investigation, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. So let me just take it from here. Good things take some time, sometimes take some time. Attempts to slow, block the inevitable, and then there's the justice, will fail. So maybe there needs to be a removal of a justice, not really sure, but Q has referenced this as kill brackets sometimes, meaning that whatever might be removed. So will fail. Democrats election interference 2016. Clinton, Hussein, illegal FISA. Democrats election interference 2018. We had the Mueller investigation. Then we had Democrats election interference 2020, which would be impeachment. And that's all come into play, right? Projection. These people are sick. We, the people, are the cure. Now, moving you on to this next one here, I thought that this might be referring to a time marker. This is post 3080. And this is comes in the 15th of March. So not quite a year ago from 2019. But as you can see, we have the American flag here. And this is a really, really wonky American flag. It's not a typical American flag. And again, I always mention that this thing plays tricks on my eyes. I think there is some sort of subtext or some sort of embedding in this picture. It always messes with my eyes. And a lot of you guys seem to agree. And some of you have even been able to pull some random things out of it. Nothing really concrete. But as you can see, it is titled Freedom_Justice_. And we've seen Q talking about Freedom Day recently, right? And that was in regards to Brexit. That was just from last week. And so now we're seeing this freedom and justice. So does this mean that we have something significant coming up and this is a time marker? I'm not really sure, but let me take you to one more here. This is Q3643 from the 3rd of December 2019. And Q references an even older post 309. Sorry, it's a little blurry here, but this is from the 9th of December 2017, where Q had just simply said justice. So a very similar post back on the 9th of December 2017. So it looks like to be a marker. This was entitled Justice Marker. Now keep in mind that these titles that you see on these Qmap, if you're reading it from Qmap.pub, these titles aren't from Q themselves. They are from the people who actually run the board over there at Qmap.pub. But indeed that seems to be the case, right? So could this be just another marker? These flags have also been markers. We've also seen pictures pictures of the gavel, pictures of the cannon. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, if you scroll through some of the older posts, Q has used certain pictures, and then sometimes these picture titles might actually be some sort of time marker. So it may seem like kind of a nebulous idea when we're first looking at it, but what this may be when we finally look back at it all, could be a future proves past kind of thing, we may see that these are time markers. So I hope that makes sense there. Now, for some reason, this thread reader doesn't want to take you to the direct links here. So let me take you over to Twitter. This was my next post. And I was referencing Greg Rubini on Twitter, who does a ton of great work over there. And Greg Rubini had tweeted this, and thanks to QAnon Alpha for sharing this with me. This is actually QStorm Alpha's tweet at QAnon Alpha. And on the left here, you see Greg Rubini's tweet from February 8th, 2020. The first to be arrested will be McCabe and Strzok, maybe as early as Monday or Tuesday next week. And then, of course, here on the right, you see this post that we're covering right now, 3849, Justice, right? So who knows? Will Greg Rubini be right? Well, Greg Rubini does pretty good work, and we will see. But I will say this, McCabe and Strzok would be the likely ones. I know that a lot of people would like to see the big names, Comey, obviously Hillary Clinton, and Obama, and John Brennan, James Clapper. But I think realistically, the ones, if there are going to be some arrests, it's probably going to be McCabe and Strzok. Remember, McCabe has a grand jury already formed against him. So to me, it would seem likely. But then again, I could be wrong. That's what Greg Rubini is saying, and we shall see. But it would make a lot of sense. Now, let's take it down a little bit further here. Sorry, I'm moving slowly. I was having a lot of trouble with internet speed, and of course, 8kun was getting hard, and that's what I'm talking about here. 8kun board operators suggest that hits have been hard and coordinated. Lots of MSM hit pieces came out over the last 48 as well. Another reason I won't be attempting a video. Yeah, so I didn't bother yesterday. A lot of people were getting hit, and sometimes it's just better as content creators to just lay low, because if you know everyone's getting blocked and banned, putting up a video sometimes just means that it's going to either get taken down or giving you a strike or whatever. If they're feeling frisky, they're just going to go for you. But at Code Monkey Z here, this is the guy who actually runs 8kun here, the board operator. Attacks have been coming in all day. Very sophisticated and expensive attacks. The person paying for the attack likely has deep pockets. Note, if the ClearNet site is under attack, the Tor site will probably still be working. So with the site under attack like that, it would seem to me that with Q coming on, there would need to be a pretty hefty Q proof. That's a great way for Q to authenticate. Obviously, they have to authenticate through the boards over there, and that makes sense. But for us as people that are following, we're going to want to see when there's a site going down or they're having problems like that, Q is often going to want to come back on and authenticate. And that's where we're going to move on to our next post right here. 3850, 58 minutes after the hour of 12, hunters become the hunted. And this is really sweet. I don't know who made this movie poster here. I don't see that it says, but it is entitled Justice JPEG. So is this another marker or just contributing here? But let's read this. Beloved depths of the DC swamp. The hunt is on. In the invisible war for the future of our republic, the tables are now turned, and now the hunters become the hunted. Patriots in control. Nice. So now we get a Twitter status here to Kyle Griffin. And Kyle tweets this Bloomberg article. Attorney General Barr has acknowledged for the first time that Rudy Giuliani has been giving the Justice Department information he collected in Ukraine, essentially bringing what was a stealth campaign into official government channels. Yeah, last month he was out there in Ukraine, right? Getting all kinds of interesting info. So here's the article from Bloomberg. Giuliani giving Ukraine data to Justice Department, Barr says. Attorney General William Barr acknowledged for the first time Monday that the President Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Gotcha by the Giulianis, has been given the Justice Department information he collected in Ukraine, essentially bringing what was a stealth campaign into official government channels. That's a real key term right there, right? Essentially bringing what was a stealth campaign into official government channels. Barr said, however, that information coming from Ukraine must be carefully vetted to ensure it is accurate and authentic. The DOJ has the obligation to have an open door to anybody who wishes to provide us information that they think is relevant, Barr told reporters during a news conference in Washington. We have to be very careful with respect to any information coming from Ukraine. There are a lot of agendas in Ukraine. There are a lot of cross currents, and we can't take anything we receive from Ukraine at face value. But House Judiciary Chairman Gerald Go Nadler quickly objected to the Justice Department's arrangement with Giuliani, saying,
どうした?やってみせろ。
No, he said it raises serious questions about conflicts of interest, both for the department generally and for you specifically. Given your creation of a new intake process for Mr. Giuliani, it is all the more important that you provide a complete explanation for your decision to sidestep standard department practice, Nadler wrote in a letter to Barr. Nadler, a New York Democrat, goes on to demand information, including the dates of any communications between the department and Mr. Giuliani regarding information relating to Ukraine or investigations of the Bidens. Okay, so you see what's going on here. Nadler wants to see what's up with this, and of course he wants to be able to use some of that information, likely to leak it out to the press or get out in front of the narrative, and that doesn't appear to be the case. Barr didn't specify what kind of information Giuliani, a former mayor of New York, has been providing. Giuliani has previously said he had been collecting information about the activities of former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter in Ukraine. Okay, well, he was probably getting that from a number of sources, right? What sources were those? Now back to the Q Post. Did Mueller open the door to Ukraine? Well, it would seem outwardly that he did inadvertently, right? Unless, of course, that was the plan all along. Did Mueller open the door to FISA? And then illegal is in brackets. So keep in mind, we have 4 illegal FISA warrants that we know of, right? Papadopoulos, General Flynn, Carter Page, and Paul Manafort, right? And we also know that FISA goes both ways. Not all FISAs are illegal. FISAs are also legal, which means that we have FISAs out right now. We don't necessarily know who they're all on, but we know that they're out there, and Q has hinted that FISA goes both ways. How do you introduce evidence legally? Well, this is a complicated subject, but I would use General Flynn's situation as a perfect example. Through the defense of General Flynn, we discovered that these 302s were altered, right? And we also knew that the judge who accepted the plea deal for General Flynn originally was a personal buddy of Peter Strzok. So we found a lot of things through the defense. And I think that that's kind of been the plan with President Trump. It seems like Trump knew everybody was going to try and go after him, whether it was through this Mueller report, the impeachment. We've seen it. Q laid it out almost like a schedule, right? We knew exactly how this was going to go down and what they were going to do to get to him, because they were the only logical things and the logical steps that you would need to take to try and take down POTUS. But let's also remember that when they do this, the defense has to be able to defend themselves, which means material can come up. And a lot of that material can be exculpatory or something that might exonerate somebody. There's a lot of different things that kind of open up. And because the Democrats are so desperate, they kind of have to risk that. And that's what it seems to be the case. Now, I also want to plan a couple other things before we move on. Remember that before this all began, the day before, Robert Mueller met with the POTUS, right? And many suspected that this was about extending his time at the FBI. But we also knew that he had already extended his time. Obama extended him. It's a 10-year period, and you're not supposed to work past that. So he was already past that. So it would seem illogical to me that he was meeting about extending his stay at the FBI. Let's also remember from this post, 1273 from the 26th of April, 2018, that Rudy Giuliani met with Mueller. What happens to the special counsel? Rudy met with Mueller today. Coincidence? Connect. Public announcement. End of POTUS investigation. Continue with other investigations. Stage set. Yeah, this is setting a stage. Mueller was a big dog and pony show, right? It was to let Democrats know that, hey, man, we're really doing something about this, but on the lay low. It looked like there was another investigation going on. Support growing. Well, remember, this was 26th of April, 2018. Support has grown massively since then. Was that strategic? Planned? We have it all. Welcome to the White House. So very interesting, right? Now, let's also remember that General Flynn has met with Mueller 19 times. That's quite a few times. And it looks like he is cooperating with something. What would he be cooperating with? How do you introduce evidence legally? So you see where we're going with this, right? How do you introduce evidence legally? Q asked it twice, so it must be important. Did impeachment harm or help POTUS? Public being in brackets. Well, you could argue that it didn't. You could argue that it, I don't think impeachment really helps anybody. But I think given the circumstances that we're under, the process of watching impeachment fail did end up helping the POTUS in the long run. It's obviously not ideal, but the more unhinged you see everybody going after POTUS, the more that the people that are on the fence, or even the people that just don't like POTUS but aren't necessarily unhinged, are starting to say, all right, well, this is a little bit enough of this, right? How do you introduce Democrats' high crimes, corruption to the public? Well, that's a tricky one, right? Because it's not very easy. The MSM isn't going to report on it. And of course, Fox News will probably only do so much. We can only probably trust them to do so much. And then, of course, there's other conservative news stations, people like myself, that can try and do our best with what we can work with. But the fact of the matter is the only way that you can really put that out on Front Street is to do it in a way like we talked about with the State of the Union or something like that. Some place where no one can really look away, where the mainstream media can't really turn off the cameras. It has to be put in the public arena of knowledge, right? Why didn't POTUS remove Hussein holders from the NSC? Well, we know now that the Vindman twins have been let go. Ambassador Sondland has been let go. And it looks like they are going to let go another 70 people and probably even more. It's quite a few. And we're getting basically budget cuts at the NSC, which I think is outstanding. But it's been a while now, right? So it looks like they were probably held over because of their security clearances. And remember, FISA goes both ways. So they were probably useful for a while. Not to mention with the narrative, this Vindman thing really, really fell apart. There's still a lot of people that think he's a big war hero or whatever. But for the most part, I think most people know he's a clown, right? And of course, that only helped POTUS's case. So a lot of this was for optics. And I think the other part of it was, of course, to kind of tail them and see what their intel was and where they were getting it from and where they were leaking it to. Do you really believe that a POTUS and team trusted Hussein, being Barack Hussein and the membrane holdovers, to remain with the admin and work to enact POTUS agenda without bias or confrontation? No, we knew this, and we knew that it was just going to make them look even uglier, right? And that's exactly how this went down. And now that they've been escorted out of the White House, it's basically just been a big fail fest. How do you awaken the adduced coma, public, fake news control from their long sleep? Well, I guess you got to kind of badger them for a little while, right? I mean, we can sit there, like Sean Hannity, be like, oh, and what about this? And what about this? But the fact of the matter is that you just kind of have to sometimes let it seep out. Just the way that CNN is constantly banging people over the head with their lies, we got to bang their head over with the truth all the way up until 2020, right? But more importantly is that they need to be exposed to the ugliness of their own party. We saw that with Nancy Pants. She was ripping up the State of the Union address. And, behavior like this is the kind of stuff that will sway people, sometimes allowing your enemies to openly attack. Logical thinking. And I want you to note that there are a little bit of spaces in between those dots right there. Now let me take you over to something interesting here. This was shared to me by Law of One Anon at Law One, and that is with a Q instead of an O. Very, very cool graphic here. The dots translate to SSE. Well, let's take a look at that here. And I'm afraid I can't blow this up much more without losing a lot of resolution here, but you'll get the idea. We were talking about how do you legally inject evidence, right? Well, you see down here at the bottom of this little box, those are the dots that I was just talking about with the spaces. And what they've done here is enter it into a Morse code translator, which would seem to make some sense, right? Well, what comes out of it letters SSE. And so what they're equating with this possibly could be this sensitive site exploitation. And this is by the U.S. Department of Defense, official definition of the United States Department of the term. And then down here, and I know it's a little bit small here for you, but highlighted in red, a related series of activities inside a captured sensitive site to exploit personnel documents, electronic data, and material captured at the site while neutralizing any threat posed by the site or its contents, also called SSE. And that's JP 3-31, pretty small for me too, USDOD. So given what we just saw in that graphic, and thanks again to Lawnon for sharing that, I think that's a very compelling connection, and it's contextual, so it makes sense, right? We're talking about military intelligence, and we know that we've had to use military intelligence for this operation, right? And of course, we see more in 3851 that kind of buttresses that point. 21 minutes after the hour of 1, we get a Washington Examiner link, and let me take you over here real quick. This is what we were just talking about. Bigger than Vindman. Trump scrubs 70 Obama holdovers from the NSC. President Trump is making good on his promises to drain the swamp and cut Obama-era holdovers from his staffs, especially the critical and recently controversial National Security Council. Officials confirmed that Trump and National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien have cut 70 positions inherited from former President Barack Obama, who had fattened the staff to 200. Well, that's really curious, right? That's a lot of positions that are being cut. Many were loners from other agencies and have been sent back. Others left government work. The NSC, which is President's personal staff, was rocked when a whistleblower leveled charges that led to Trump's impeachment, was given a horrendous report by his superior, the man he reported to, who publicly stated that Vindman had problems with judgment, adhering to the chain of command, and leaking information. In other words, out. Okay, so we get this. We know that the downsizing is occurring, and we know why, right? A lot of that fat that is there was simply just a bunch of clown knuckleheads there to gather info on people. And Q says we got what we needed. We just talked about FISA going both ways, right? So it looks like a lot of these knuckleheads that had a problem with adhering to authority were probably also sending off some communications, right, by way of text or emails or whatever it might be. But as this has all gotten hotter and heavier, there's been less of these people to really kind of rely upon. So it's a little bit easier to kind of suss out who's a knucklehead, if that makes any sense. Now, again, there is no step 5. For context of that, Adam Schiff kind of laid out this 4-step plan to remove POTUS, and we've talked about that in previous Q posts also very briefly, but that's essentially what Q is referring to. There is no step 5. This is done. Thank you for playing Q.
Round 2, fight! You lose.
Post 3852, 21 minutes after the hour of 1, we get taken back to post 3596. This was from November 15th, 2019. What advantages might exist when you know the other side's playbook? And this was a link to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and the definition was for the word trap. Enjoy the show. Q says, caught them all. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
That's what I said. Well, POTUS can sum it up real simple by just saying this.
I think in light of all of the things going on, and you know what I mean by that, the fake news, the Comeys of the world, all of the bad things that went on, it's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens.
Post 3853, 31 minutes after the hour of 1. We get taken back to an April 2nd post from 2018. This was from 1123, oddly enough, 2323. But the post number is 993, and this appears to be our Q proof here. Where we go one, we go all. Drops will go fast. White House clean signal. We talked about this the other day too. Marker. We just talked about that in this video. Everything is planned, like we were just talking about with the Mueller report. Years, meaning that this was a long time coming. Message, unity, awakening. We fight. And then we get a couple of curious terms here. Lexington, Concord, stay together, Q. And for those of you who are not familiar, Lexington Concord was one of the first battles. It was the first battle of the American Revolutionary War, a very key battle. And this also had to do with disarming citizens. That's how it kind of all began. Q says, follow Bolton, clean stage, learn how to archive offline. The streets will not be safe for them. Indeed. And Q says here, what happened following Bolton's departure from the White House? White House clean? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. What happened following impeachment? Nadler, Pelosi, Schiff cannot walk down the street. Yeah, they're really struggling, right? And you guys may have seen the POTUS actually retweeted one of my videos about Gerald Nadler a couple times, actually. These people are really struggling to get down the street without being accosted. Schiff recently had a rally where he got got booed. And of course, I did a burn on Nancy Pelosi too that I passed all over Twitter. You guys probably saw it. It's up on YouTube also if you want to check my quick burns. By the way, if you go to my video and you go to go to my homepage on YouTube and you go to the playlist section, you'll be able to find all my quick burns if you want to find those. But you get the idea, right? None of these people are able to walk down the street without getting accosted at this point, and it's because all of this is catching up with them. Imagine that. Q. Now to the Q proof.
Gotta see it.
It does gotta see it. An American wife saw it. She wanted to know if I saw it. She said, IPOT, did you see it? This Q proof tonight? First, Q posted this old post, and then after that, at the rally tonight, POTUS says this. Okay, so she is talking about this post that we just talked about here, 993 from back in April 2nd, 2018, and they're talking about Lexington and Concord. And of course, we need to go to the video from the rally today to see it.
You know how famous Concord is? Concord. That's the same Concord that we read about all the time, right? Concord. I love Concord.
That to me looks like a see it. That looks like a little air cue right there, and about 10 times mentioning Concord. 10 times. Yeah, I heard it. And I said, I did, thanks. An American wife says, aw, today is the best day ever. Nice. A Q proof and a reply from my favorite YouTube newser. Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you saw it, and I'm glad that you shared it with me, and I think we could do it even one better, because we just put you on the dang show. Fist bump. Post 38:54, 37 minutes after the hour of 1. We get this picture right here. We've seen this before. The greatest military intelligence operation of our time. And all the kids are checking out the Q. They're like, look, lady, it's got to see it. She's like, I don't want to look at that. And they're like, but it's got to see it. She's like, I don't even know what that means. What do you mean it got to see it? They're like, what? Do you not follow IPOT or what? She's like, no, I don't even know what IPOT is. I don't do drugs. And they're like, that's not a drug. It's just you follow the channel and then you know about the Q, and then you know what the see it means. But you can't see it if you're turned around because you can't see it because you're not facing it. Back channels are important. Attacks will only intensify. You attack those who threaten you the most. Enjoy the show. Well, like I said earlier on in the video, we had a lot of attacks lately, and I know I can only speak to you on my own experience. It's been hellacious over the last few weeks, and yeah, it's been pretty rough, but let's face it, this information really needs to get out. And just like really a lot of times in history, back channels have been important. We know that we can't get our information through a lot of our intelligence agencies, and we know we can't get proper information through our mainstream media, and of course both of those are linked. So it's been really difficult, right? So I think that this whole operation on 8kun, 8chan, or whatever is considered a back channel. This is one way to get right to the point without having to deal with this middleman of the mainstream media. And of course, that threatens everybody. Now, if you've been online at all over the last probably 48 to 72 hours, you will know that everything from the New York Times, especially the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC, everyone is coming out with QAnon hit pieces. And of course, it's all coordinated like we've seen before. This is really nothing new. And Q has warned us in the same way, saying attacks will only intensify. You attack those who threaten you the most. Indeed. And I know a lot of my fellow content creators are struggling with their own issues. There's been a lot of different things that's gotten pretty intense, but we still managed to get it out to you. And we appreciate you guys tuning in and checking this out, but our numbers are definitely growing while the MSM is essentially bleeding, and of course that's why they're so threatened. And I'm going to leave it at that because I'm going to probably do some burns in regards to that. But those are your Q posts. Enjoy the show. All right, Patriots, that's all I got for you at the moment, but there will be more on the way. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I was speaking earlier about finding some of my videos. If you ever want to be able to just find my QAnon stuff, my regular reports, and of course my quick burns or my 2 minutes of truth, I'm over here at my homepage here, but you will see these headers here, home videos. Just go to playlists and that will open it up for you. And you can also find some of the Q stories that some of you guys sent me too, and let me know if you want to do some more of those. I liked them, but either way, you can find them in the playlist section. If you have not joined one of my alternate channels, they are all linked down below. My Brighteon, my DropSpace, my BitChute, and I'm over there on Gab, and of course I'm at Twitter at IPOT 1776. All those are linked down below. Once again, that's IPOT 1776. If you have information for me, please email me. Do not DM me on Twitter. Please email me. That is also in the video description. My P.O. box is in the video description. Thanks to all of you who send cards and all sorts of cool little personal things. It really kind of gives me a nice feeling as to getting to know who you guys are too. So thank you guys very, very much for all of that. And of course, if you'd like to support my channel, my Patreon is also linked down below. I post a lot of my threads on Patreon. You do not have to be a patron to go check them out. They are all up there for you. But of course, if you'd like to go check that out, you are more than welcome to. All that is down below. All right, Patriots, till next time, stay funky.